Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. My name is Dominic, the founder and the past president of Fire and Security of India, and the founder of Forum of Critical Utility Services and the marketing arm of FireSafe India Foundation. So since last 36 years, we've been doing many seminars in last 2 years, many webinars with one objective that life is precious. Everyone has a right to live safely. This is something we have to make it loud and clear, either through legislation, either through PAL, either to court interventions, that everybody has a right to live safely. We have seen many accidents in the recent past. Whatever the cost to invest in the building, whether it's an apartment or an office space, what we fail to understand or recognize, how safe I am in that building. The recent fire in Mumbai, which each apartment was costing 8 to 9 crores, there was no water to fight the fire. I don't know what the investigation finally came out. Mr. Deshmukh is part of it. I don't know whether he'll address that. But still, why the residents are not well educated? Is it an attitude problem or is it an ego problem to find whether they live safely? When they can find what luxury they can get in that apartment, why not? How safe they live? Wherever they move around, are they looking around, telling the children that how to be safely evacuate in case there is a fire in a building? So the journey continues, the learning continues, the awareness continues. And you have seen the recent days, why major fires happening in hospitals, especially in ICUs. Today we have wonderful expertise. Mr. Deshmukh, the former director of Maharashtra, with so much experience. Mr. V. Suresh, vice president of National Building Code, and we have Dr. Lallu Joseph, who's the general secretary of CAO, who's again, advocating the quality of life in hospital, healthcare. And we have eminent speaker on electrical safety, Mr. Gopakumar. So I don't think we can have better speakers for that on this subject. And we begin the day with welcome address by Mr. M.B. Deshmukh, a well-known personality in India and a highly inspirational leader in the fire industry. He is the former director of Maharashtra Fire and current chairman of FireSafe India Foundation. With over 38 years of active firefighting operations in the industrial belt, he has handled HR, security, IT department of MIDC. He has many degrees, but what I love it is he's also an advocate today. And he took the LLB not to practice, but to equip, to fight the system that why fire cannot be made mandatory, the safety cannot be mandatory. He wants to take up why this violation happened. So he took with a lot of passion to learn about the law and how to fight in the court. So he is an advocate today, practicing advocate today. And his passion is Mission FireSafe India. He wants to make every citizen aware of FireSafe. Now welcome to Mr. Deshmukh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Dominic, for such a nice introduction of mine and also setting the path for the discussion of we all. Though it is on the sad note of the accidents what we see, ultimately what is in our hand is to continuously educate the masses, continuously sensitize the regulators and the government agencies, continuously sensitize the builders and the developers who create the infrastructure for us, and also the other infrastructure agencies. It's a pleasure to welcome Madam Lallu Joseph as we missed her in last conference because of some uncalled reasons. And V. Suresh is always the backbone for many of the activities in India, including uh, the upkeeping our national building code and updating it from time and again. So he always gives his best. He has more than 6 decades experience, sir. Six
Yes,
decades
sir.
into the line, and he is a best engineer, but is a best human being. Uh, Dr. Gopakumar, there is a blame on your subject by every authority that any fire occurs, they pass it on to the electricity, which I don't personally agree. And many times I see that electricity may not be the always cause. But if electricity is the cause and everybody is accepting that is the cause, and if we focus on the preventive measures as far as the use of the electricity and the electricity distribution network and the infrastructure that is used by the uh, all building, but in particular today we are going to discuss about the hospitals. So your inputs will be very valuable. You will be able to rule out the doubts in the minds of the people as to can electricity be a culprit? Is electricity is a source of our development, or is electricity a cause for accident? So I think you will give that justice. As you know, the Fire Safe India Foundation, I have proud privilege to, brief all of you and the participants as to what we intend to do. We basically, while during my services in the government, we have been always focusing on the four major pillars to equip the or to save the life of the people. One focus that we always gave on the legislative reforms, that is the different laws and the pertinent provisions in the different laws and the codes and the standards. So though now I am not into the active service, definitely developing or creating the pressure to develop or to bring better codes, always we as a Fire Safe India Foundation can contribute to best of our ability. Legislative reforms, the Maharashtra as a concern area for me during those days. We had a Maharashtra Fire Prevention Life Safety Measures Act. It was one to one moved from the all Mantralaya and the Delhi corridors, and we had a legislation. And my team, which includes Mr. Warik, Mr. Ogle, and the entire team of Mumbai and other places, they have contributed a lot to see that the legislation sees the light at the end of the day. Now, after the legislation is in place, we have to actually have the capacity building as a program. And the capacity building that includes the number of fire stations, the equipment, the manpower, and the regulators strengthening. So we have the fire officers; those are equipped to give these fire NOCs or approvals, but they need to be really equipped. We need to strengthen our regulator on the different standards, codes, its implementation, process of inspection, process of audit. It's a continuous process. Even I don't call myself an expert or something. It's a lot of learning for me from the participants. Those are with us, and those will continue to support us. So that is the second pillar which I believe in. Third pillar is, of course, the you can say the mass education and the public awareness. And the mass education and the public awareness, uh, that is a continued mission through the Fire Safe India Foundation and many other forums working on it, which is a good thing. We can at a time converge and see that every citizen of this country is empowered. We talk about the people living in apartment, but are people buying those apartments are concerned as to what are the facilities that I should have for my own safety. If they are not concerned, and if we are going to bombard and hammer the issues and the codes and the standards, probably the demanding consumer, inviting consumer is not there. I think we'll not achieve our goal. And that is what we thought, that we must empower the citizens. Now, when the patient is serious, he has no choice to go but to go to the nearest hospital. But during the peace time, are we going to be, when we visit on the some our relatives or friends, and when we visit hospitals, can we our eyes be vigilant and observant to see that whether this hospital is having the basic fire safety measures or not, and they can make their voice. So it is not one way flow that the regulator and the government that always we can blame, but it is a demanding consumer, the consumer forum, that has to really come forward and say that this building there is no adequate water storage for the firefighting, or even the consumer is aware of, or the client is aware of, the citizen is aware of, that yes, I have a water reservation or water reservoir in my building, but it is my duty to see that it is kept full with the water. Like the Avigna fire, the news you must have seen, most of you must have seen the footage that our fire department people say there was only 20% water, which they could initially use, and then there was no water supply. So how can you blame the fire department? I'm not trying to defend my own fraternity, but it is our duty to see that we have hose reels in our every passages and building nowadays. But whether those hose reels at least are in order or not, do we have a small extinguisher in our every block of the building, every part of the building, as per the specifications laid down in the IS code for laying the extinguishers or the type of extinguishers? These are the basic things which does not require a great expertise, but it requires only the fire kindling into the belly of the people like you and me and the participants, those who always take interest in the subject. So, with this, I mean, basic remarks, I would like to open up this forum, and we would like to drive the mission of the Fire Safe India Foundation, which we proudly call as the Mission Fire Safe India. We are concerned about the all sort of occupancies, but today our focus is on the hospital buildings. It is very sad to know that in the initial stage I said that, though it is on a sad note, but one good thing is that we are coming together and we are showing our concern and we are serious about the issues. That in a short span of time, a week time, 15 people dying in one hospital fire in the Ahmednagar district in Maharashtra and other in the Gujarat. So where we are going to stop? And every time if we blame electricity as a culprit, is electricity is the source of our progress, industrialization, our economic growth, or is electricity is only cause of accident? So that we have an expert today who will voice these issues. So with this, I welcome all the participants. We have 100 plus participants today, and the galaxy of the speakers. And we have V. Suresh, is a very important key person who is going to moderate the session if time permits for him, because he is handling the tracks at a time, two horses is riding at a time. That there's a green building conference happening and he's participating in that, and still he has given us a time. So with this, I open up, and Dominic, to whom I should invite first to talk about?
Yes, sir. It's
Madam Lallu Joseph, right?
Yeah,
so you go ahead with the introduction of Madam, and Madam will give justice to her topic.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for giving the welcome note, and you have highlighted very important point why we as a user also be aware and make sure that every system is working condition, not to depend only on the fire department to be responsible in fighting the fire. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our keynote address, Dr. Lallu Joseph, the General Secretary of CAWO. She's one of the sort of a speaker when it comes to healthcare. We know her since many years and very passionate speaker. And all of you know, CAWO is also one of the technical body of the healthcare system. CAWO is the Associate General Superintendent, and she's the Associate General Superintendent and Quality Manager of CMC Hospital, Vellore, the largest NABH accredited hospital in India. I visited last 2 weeks back. I could see even in COVID, there were at most 5 to 6,000 floating, the inpatient coming into that hospital. The way she manages, a hospital manager, amazing. One has to visit that hospital to see what kind of charity they do. Prior to joining healthcare, she was the vice president of a software company and a teaching assistant in Rotman School of Management, University of Toronto. A mechanical engineer by profession, went on to complete her master's and doctorate in the business administration and a diploma in CQI from the Canadian Healthcare Administration. A keen learner, completed the one-year executive general management program of IIM Bangalore in 2016. She has many book chapters and publication to her credit and was part of developing the entry-level guidelines for NABH standard, a joint initiative of NABH and World Bank. She's involved in overseeing the implementation QMS in selected government hospitals of Karnataka through KAVO as part of World Bank funded project, and a part of Task Force Karnataka Knowledge Commission implementation and procedural costing. She has been instrumental in developing 22 training programs for KAVO, which are well sought after. A passionate teacher and trainer, and trained over 3,000 professionals across the country, is also the faculty of many hospital administration programs. She's also the principal assessor of the NABH. She also represents KAVO at the executive board of Asian Society for Quality and Healthcare. We welcome Dr. Lallu Joseph to this wonderful program. I'm sure this subject also raised many eyebrows. What are we talking about? Over to our keynote address, Dr. Lallu Joseph.
Thank you very much, my dear friend Dominic, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And it's a pleasure sharing this stage with Mr. Deshmukh from the Fire Safe and India Foundation. Dr. Suresh, as always, cheerful. Thank you very much, sir. And Gopakumar, we are waiting to learn from you about electrical safety. And it's indeed a big honor and pleasure to be here. I bring greetings from the Christian Medical College, Vellore, and also the Consortium of Accredited Healthcare Organizations in India. So, I mean, it's a great initiative that you have undertaken, and really appreciate Deshmukh sir for, you know, being a champion in the cause for bringing about safety in our establishments, our infrastructure, because that's the need of the hour. I will begin with my experience as to how I came into this field. I'm also as passionate as all of you when it comes to fire safety and managing fire installations. But I know the ground reality and exactly what happens when it comes to hospitals. So I started my journey in healthcare in 2007 and then became a principal assessor. So during one of the assessments and that I did in the state of Odisha, in Bhubaneswar, I happened to get into a dialysis facility where there were about 14 patients on dialysis machine connected. And I've always been very scared about this aspect of what happens if there is a fire in a particular area. So I interviewed some of the technicians there in the ICU, the dialysis area. The doctor was not there because this is a, it's not a very critical area. So I asked them, now in case there's an emergency here, let's assume there's a fire or an earthquake, and you want to evacuate the patients from here, what will you do? And the immediate response was, I will call code 1100. Okay, call the code. Now the code was called. The fire guards, the security guards, all of them came rushing into the facility. And then I said, okay, there's a fire there. Then they brought the extinguisher, tried to, extinguish the fire, doze off the fire. Then I said, okay, fire is spreading. What are you going to do? Believe me, all of them stood blank. Here we have 14 patients connected to the dialysis machine. And then I went on probing. Okay, now you have patients connected to the dialysis machine. What are you going to do? And one answer really, really surprised me. And he said, I'll wait for this 150 blood to get back. And remember, imagine this is only 150 ml of blood that needed to go back into the patient. And that patient is not going to die at all. So this is a very simple protocol where you have to make sure that you clamp the line, make the patient sit up, and just ask them to walk. These are ambulant patients. These are not sick patients. So that presence of mind was not there. So when it comes to evacuation, patient safety, it was just that code 1100 and expecting the fire team, the fire guards to come and fight the fire. And in the process, I realized this is why our hospitals are becoming oven, literally. So what happens? People do not literally know how to evacuate in an emergency, leave alone the preventive aspects. That's another big story altogether. So when it comes to prevention, there's a huge gap. When it comes to a fire or a real situation, how do you manage? Let's imagine the fire in the middle of a theater case, abdomen wide open, and you ask the surgeon, how are you going to evacuate? I'm sure most surgeons are going to blink unless there's a clear-cut protocol. Now, abdomen wide open and you have fire guards coming in, they can only put off the fire. How are they going to evacuate? So I sat on one of the FSAI forums and I realized there was a total disconnect between the technical team where they put up protocols, right BIS and NBC standards and norms. And there is a huge disconnect on the ground where people on the ground are struggling just to get a fire license. That's it. You have to have your hospital functioning. You just need that paper. And for that simple paper, you do put installations and thereafter it's the next inspection. And it's a vicious cycle. There's a total disconnect that I noticed. And that's when I thought it's time that I use the forum to start talking about the importance of having professionals in the industry coming into the forum, talk to the technical people and try and sort out the gap between the technical professionals, which is my own group of engineers, and people like us who have gone into the other industry where we have today become like doctors and nurses. So there's a huge need to have that connect. So with that, let me just quickly take you through a presentation. If you may allow me to share my screen. Yes. So this is, again, just to give you the reality of hospitals and the culture in our country. This is typically the safe culture that we are talking about. So we are typically going to be banging our head against a wall when there's absolutely no culture of safety in our country. So all of us with this culture of safety are the ones who are going to be working in hospitals, working in healthcare, other industries, and then we expect safety in that workplace. So we need to start here. Hospital. You don't have to go to Iran or Iraq to understand how a war is. You just get into the emergency department of a hospital, a busy hospital, and you will understand how and what happens there as a war, literally. Now, leaving alone the odds of dying, healthcare is hazardous. Now, if you look at the industry, we get very scared when we want to fly, but that's typically one of the safest industries. But healthcare is, I always quote this, it's like bungee jumping. You stand on top of a cliff and you jump from there, you're safer than getting yourself admitted in a hospital. This is not just fire. The odds of dying, it's highest in healthcare, not because of the illness, but because of errors that happen in healthcare. So the errors that happen in healthcare are far too many. WHO estimates, they show in developed countries, 1 in 10 patients receive some kind of harm, whether it's a medication error or some kind of a wrong patient, wrong site, all those. In India, we hide behind lack of data. We don't capture anything at all, no numbers. So we don't have anything happening. So where do we stand? In our system, safety processes fail routinely, whether it is hand hygiene. It starts with that, healthcare. The usage of appropriate PPE so that you don't pass on the infection to the other patient. Medication errors, patient identification errors, wrong surgery, retained objects, and fires. Typically, when it comes to hospitals, we have a lot of problems. Power outage at Puducherry, killing 3 dialysis patients, 22 killed in Sum, wrong leg of 24-year-old operated, 2 stuck in MRI machine. So the safety issues in hospitals is far too many. That is why our priority when it comes to fire probably is lesser than what it should ideally be. And this came as an eye-opener. The AMRI hospital fire, all of us are aware of all the problems, the root cause, too many of these causes that actually contributed to the major mishap at AMRI. And did we learn out of it? Certainly, yes, I would say, but there are a lot more things to be done. So that our COVID experience really taught us, I would say, valuable experience. It has, it just threw open the vulnerability of the healthcare establishments in India. This did not happen. I don't think it happened in other countries, but it did happen in our country. Far too many, because there are challenges with infrastructure. We are talking about a low and middle income country trying to fight out such a huge pandemic. And in the process, certainly it's been a disgrace having too many fire incidents happening during COVID. So, we always blame it on our electrical network, our system, and Gopakumar is here to probably bat the other way around to tell us what to do. And we know very well that most fire accidents that happen in hospitals as a result of electrical air conditioning, the vulnerability. And most major fire accidents reveal the same picture. And many deaths in ICU, particularly during COVID, brought out the same picture. ICUs typically during COVID became oxygen-rich atmosphere with a lot of patients on ventilators, high-flow nasal cannulae, and BiPAP, CPAP, and oxygen was the most sought-after commodity, which became a major source of fire in the ICUs. And excess use of sanitizers and release of ethanol also contributed to fire during the COVID. But I want to bring in front of you how an ICU looks like. For my peer from the healthcare industry, I'm sure they will all appreciate. This is one bed in an ICU. Look at the number of infusion pumps connected to the patient. Look at the number of monitors that are connected to this patient. And imagine the challenge with evacuating such a patient in case of any problem at all. And the number of wires that run, the vulnerability in this setup, that is a major challenge. Now, this has to be an air-conditioned facility. So, added to all this, you have the air conditioning load, you have large electrical equipment sitting there, you have good number of people within the ICU, doctors, nurses, technologists managing this patient. And it becomes a real challenge in an ICU setting if something happened. So what are the various preventive measures that one needed to take? Of course, preventive maintenance is the key when it comes to ICU. All equipment, ICU equipment, wards, everywhere. Adequate ventilation, forced natural cross ventilation, and very good protocols in place, trained people put on the floor. I'm just specifically talking about the COVID aspects, and very much focus on mock drills and educating and training, telling the people the hazards associated with fire. So the preventive measures, I feel, are the key. And we need a lot of expertise in this field to tell us how we can actually have safe electrical systems in our hospitals. It's not just the ICUs. Even a ward is like an ICU with a lot of electronic equipment and, so many systems in place. And the challenges of managing too many patients, relatives, footfalls, staff, and I don't know, it's so complex. Healthcare is extremely complex, but certainly we have a huge challenge in front of us, not just in protecting and making this patient safe and for the illness that he came for, but also make sure that we provide a safe atmosphere for him. So I want to end by saying it is that patient for whom we are working for. This patient who's admitted with us, and all of us come in the morning to save these patients and not to burn these patients literally. He probably is the sole breadwinner of the family. He may be the father of a small kid, son of an old father, husband of a young lady, and he is now our responsibility. It is to treat him and send him safe to his loved ones. And we need to imagine that he is our own, or I am there, and to take care of him like my own brother. So to do that, we need your help, the help from the technical fraternity. Support us, help us, and guide us. And thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity provided to me. Over to you. Thank you.
Very well. And you pointed out very, very important points, and your statement to help the healthcare, help the hospitals. Hospitals are made to take care of the patients, to save lives, not to burn lives. Very strong statement that you have said. And as a fire fraternities, a member of this very association, we are there to help you. We are there to support you. And we have distinguished speakers who understood. I am sure Gopakumar and our next speaker, V. Suresh, will address this concern of yours, that how is association called Focus also talk about integrated approach towards a safe building. Thank you so much, madam, and I hope that you will spare a few more minutes to listen to our keynote address by V. Suresh. Sir, welcome to this forum. All of you know, is the president of Forum of Critical Utility Services. V. Suresh is a civil engineer from Anna University with over 56 work experience. That's average, my age and everybody's age. And he has put in 56 years of work experience. former CMD of HUDCO, member of expert group of EIA, Infra 2 projects of Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change, member of Advisory Council for Rebuild Kerala, member of Kerala Government Committee for Housing and Habitat Policy. He is also chairman of CII Indian Green Building Council, IGBC, vice chairman of National Building Code of India. He has received 16 various awards and recognition. One of few of that is IBC Lifetime Achievement Award in 2014, CIA World Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017. He is the president of Good Governance India Foundation, and we all follow his footsteps as our welcome note address given by Mr. Deshmukh, the high-spirited leader, and he sets many examples to our fraternity and our engineers in India. So let's hear what our Suresh sir is going to talk about on this subject. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dominic. It's such a great pleasure to join in this wonderful program that has been organized by you, and on this very important topic of fire safety in hospitals, and more importantly, ICU one, so beautifully told by leader Deshmukh Saab, whom I look up in a very large way for not only his leadership on the legislative thing on the fire safety issue from Maharashtra side earlier, and now Fire Safety India Foundation, a very important body to spread message among all the professionals dealing with fire protection. It's been a great opportunity for us to join. And you have a wonderful address that you just now had from Dr. Lalu Joseph, with actual work experience that he's got, and from one of the premier institutions like the Vellore Medical College Compass, and the type of issues that she brought out over there are more stark and reality. And to have Gopakumar to take on the major address to be there, which everybody is looking forward to, as expert in this area, working very closely with me on the National Building Code side, and more so in the part on electrical installation. By the way, many people may not know Gopakumar's that particular component there, and therefore I'm very happy that the right person is going to talk on this particular topic today. As Deshmukh Saab rightly said on that, it is not a good thing at all to have around 15 people, COVID patients, mind you, COVID patients in hospital dying because of the fire-related one. Young babies born, just neonatal babies being just dying over. This is in continuation of 15 neonatal babies dying in some other hospital there. This does not reflect good for us. I had, as one of my chief guests for my Green Building Congress, which is just going on, I just came out of that to address you over there, was Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty, an outstanding doctor from the Vidyalaya that you have in Bangalore. And he did make a mention about the important issue of healthcare facilities, how we have to expand this particular one, and whatever problems are facing, while doctors in the operation theaters and ICU are fighting for the life of the patients and trying to get them back to give a new life over there. If those support systems fail at any point of time, light not being there, just now Lalu faced that particular thing in Vellore, power off or whatever. Imagine all the other support systems are not working on the particular thing. You can understand the type of problem coming. Of course, we are concentrating today on the issue, on the fire-related issue, a very, very important aspect. And I had the great pleasure of working along with Deshmukh Saab, not only for the 2016 version, but also for the 2005 version, earlier version on the National Building Code, all the fire protection requirements for all utilities, the famous table 23 to be made, table 7 on facilities required for all asset class of building. Healthcare facilities, a very major one. We have clearly identified the nature of provision that's required for safety in the particular thing. As he rightly said, if Part 8, Section 2 electrical installation is the root cause of the particular, why don't you concentrate on that and see that it's always with zero defect, you try to do that particular one. He rightly said that cause of fire is due to that. But how can you expect a paramedical nurse or a young doctor on duty at that late in the night to come and work on this particular thing when the fire takes place at such odd hours there, where the team dealing with the asset and facility management for the building are not the number that she said you quote to get somebody on that. So there are 2-3 important issues. I'm sure Gopakumar will open in his own inimitable style, structured in a large way. I think, to me, the most important comment in the planning design stages of hospitals in general and operation theaters, ICU and special wards in particular, all those requirements are rightly brought in over there so that you bring in all the installations which are giving the power that's required not only for the lighting, but also for the ventilation, but also for all the support system that she mentioned about. So many wires coming onto the bed over there, all of them work with zero default. Zero default is the type of thing that we should work on that. And then we were able to do that and install it properly with the best possible electrical engineering expertise to come on that, so that they don't deal with inferior type of wires or some other particular thing, so that you have short circuit and other related thing. Even if short circuit comes over there, whatever precautions should be there to ensure that that doesn't take place, and have these components of an operation theater or an ICU and all in a separate particular things are that to cut off the particular one, to have, while the main building will have other thing, have those particular thing also brought out in a large way. And when you call COVID also into the situation, you have another situation of the complete amount of the infection-free environment on the cot, on the type of bed covers there, as well as the sheets around. You have the ethanol spray coming over there. You have an alcoholic one above the false ceiling effect on the rooms over there. You have those hanging up. A small little spark is all that required for you to explode that fire in a very large way. And imagine in an operation theater when all the surgeons and everybody is working on the patient in such an intensity, if anything happens, you can imagine the type of problem over there. That's why in the NBC specifically, we told over there, hospital buildings never make it beyond 30 meters, and more so operation theaters, as well as ICUs, as well as more importantly, delivery rooms and all, where the state of condition of the particular patient and the healthcare needs are so much, put in the low height. Even though building can go to 45 meters, keep all the other one only up to low height. And then coming down to the requirements of this specific one, requirements are clearly identified for ICU, what needs to be done, for operation theaters, what needs to be done, whatever air circulation system, air changes for how do you handle that, infection-related spread should not come. That's another area we have to work on. Fire spread is another one. So you got to deal with from a multidisciplinary approach to work on this particular area. And as rightly indicated by Deshmukh sir, the most important thing is not emails. I was just reading news just now when Deshmukh sir was telling over there, 100 crores being spent on one of the very leading hospital there, but very little provided for operation maintenance. Very important. Capital cost for the hospital could be good, best facilities done, but if it is not run properly, it doesn't work properly, water not there, sprinkler doesn't work, detector doesn't work, or alarm system does not work, water is not available for, well, that's all criminal. Criminal is the word I would like to use on that. So operation maintenance becomes an important component. At least, according to my, normally if it's 1.5% of the capital cost or operating cost, we should put an operating cost. For hospitals, I would take one step extra and put 2.5%. That gives a 40-year lifetime with a 2.5% depreciation component to be brought in over there on the books over there. Minimum that should be put on there to see that all the systems are kept in operation. How do you do that? So that's why the NBC brought the Part 12 on in the NBC for the first time in the world on assets and facility management added. As long as you get a completion certificate given, an occupancy certificate given, gone. Everybody gone. Architect, engineer, builder, everybody gone. But that's where the real performance of the building is going to come. You're going to test how it's going to work in a large way. So we brought in that particular chapter. What happens at building 6 months later, 1 year later, 2 years later, 5 years later? Therefore, you should have a strict assets and facility management guideline to deal with firefighting installation, lift installation, air conditioning installation, every installation. It has got a checklist to deal with all the particular things. How do you do that? You require audits to be done. And therefore, audits is an important component to be done at regular interval. I would say in respect of hospitals and more so in ICU, as well as in operation theaters and important recovery related areas which come, especially children and all that, the mothers and all that. do have those particular audits and things to be done at closer intervals. While an annual audit would have been, fire audit would have been there, these type of things you do more closely in a periodic way, and there should be a special team to deal with that particular thing, that every system is working. They got to go to the root cause. I like Deshmukh said, putting thrust on the root cause. Go to the root cause on the firefighting installation over there. Wires hanging here. You saw the number of wires hanging around, which can create all the problems there. Even I'm sure the nurses or the paramedical healthcare or the junior doctors or the doctors may not be able to understand. These can create the biggest problem there. You got to work together. It also shows a little symbiotic relationship between the healthcare people. Of course, they can't be the firefighters, but at least they can deal with some of those particularly immediately over there. By the time you call somebody, how do you do that? A little amount of exposure for even that would be a very important aspect. I should talk more because this is a topic on which Gopakumar is going to make an intense presentation, and I know how he does that particular one. So I don't want to talk something and his presentation coming, but I want to broadly give the type of item and bring the particular audit component, fire audit to be coming, and a strict level of operation maintenance type of things to be ensured, right level of technicians to be brought in, because we'll have the best electrical engineer, best architect, best structural engineer, but the one going to come and fix that would be an electrician with not much of exposure. We ourselves know how when you want somebody to come and fix up something, you not the trained, good trained, certified electricians who are very competent to deal with the particular thing, so that we will be able to arrest the problem right in the beginning over there. I mean, these are the type of messages I thought I should give that. Fortunately, the code provides for all these particular aspects there, and all that is required. And this is exactly what Deshmukh sir tried when he brought out the act in 2016 or 16, sir? Maharashtra Fire Act
2006.
Yeah. And therefore, he made a compulsory that NBC 2000 should be the way by which you will be able to ensure that, and nothing lower than those base standards. All that is required is all the fire services team, as well as hospital administration one, etc. Everybody should work on. I'm going to have a session immediately after this, another session on hospitals related issues coming over there in the Green Building Congress, wherein Dr. R. Chandrasekhar is an architect, but he's also a PhD in the subject, expert in the hospital design and its implementation there. Of course, that's looking from the point of sustainability and the green building component. So after this one, I'll be taking with the permission of Deshmukh Saab, as well as we have 7,000 delegates in the Green Building Congress. That session is an important one. It will also have the Padma Shri Raghavendran participating in that, making a presentation there. But I think, let me not lose track of what I'm talking there. So Goba, I'm sure you'll take forward all the type of provisions that you have in the NBC in various parts and sections, more so in hospital in general, and specifically operation theater, ICU, and the critical wards related one, especially escape and other related component. What can be done? Who should do that? The problem is who should do what? So that particular protocol has got to be also disseminated to everybody in the hospital. Well, the best surgeon and the best doctors and the type of visiting doctors and the nurses will do all the other things. They should also have some amount of exposure on the possible nature of it. We shouldn't have the type of repeat that's happening. 5 accidents which Deshmukh Saab said, it is not a thing on which we can be proud of. India is growing well. We are going to 75 years of independence. We cannot have any of, something, when earthquake took place in 2001, January 26, the first building that collapsed over there in Kutch was a hospital building. Where will you take all the people over there, including the district collector's office and the police station? So such buildings which are there, which are public building, especially healthcare related one, safety is very, very important. The importance factor required for design has got at least 50% more than all the other buildings. You're talking about these buildings with 100-year life or whatever. This cannot be a 30, 40-year life. So you've got to invest into right level of planning, design, detailing, and quality execution of a large nature, and more importantly, the post commissioning, the type of operational audit to be done over there, fire audit to be done regularly, and based on the fire retrofitting to be done, strengthening to be done, even something is to be done. First of all, it should not happen in such a short time period. But imagine hospitals of 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 20-year-old, it will happen. So therefore, some amount of retrofitting and strengthening. If the whole building can have a 100-year life or a 80-year life, these between structural, non-structural, finishing and service, different lives will be there. The aircon system, the lighting system, the electrical system, they will have lesser amount of life over there, which would require a certain amount of overall coming at regular interval. I'm sure this will also be touched upon by Gob, in which I'd like to give all my very best to go for the presentation, and all the participants eagerly looking forward to. I thought we are a century now. We are already 150 in number. Very good response. I'm so happy to see that particular thing. I would not like to anything furthermore. And Dominic, therefore, I request Dominic and Deshmukh sir would request you to kindly call our bridegroom of the day, the going to make the presentation. That is versatile Gopakumar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Suresh, sorry,
yes,
Dominic. Mr. Suresh, a small request, sir. If you can finish your second track and join us during the question answer session, I think your inputs and your contribution will be of a valued importance.
I will try.
Thank you so much, sir, for very, very good insight, very vibrant way of your telling and sensitizing the participants here. So we look forward to see you again, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, I'll try my level best, sir. But that's it. Starts at 12:30. If I can finish all that, but we should give Gob all the time to speak now, sir.
Yes.
At least half an hour uninterrupted, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Dominic.
Oh, thank you, sir. Wonderful, wonderful inspiration. You said assets and facility management is very important, and planning and design of hospitals also is important today, because most of the hospitals are not built for hospitals. They were converted from the hotels to a hospital, or the institutions, education institution turning into a hospital. Again, electrical is an important subject that matters to safe building. So I would request our speaker of the day, Mr. Gopakumar, to join in and touch upon the topic that we have invited a lot of participants. I would like to introduce Mr. Gopakumar, who's an electrical engineer and director of Cape Electric. He is having more than 27 years of experience in electrical safety, lighting protection, EMI and EMC of electrical installation. He has conducted more than 100 site studies on failure in electronic equipment and presented papers for more than 1,000 seminars and training programs. Member of the working group of IS and IEC, technical coordinator of lighting awareness and research center, Trivandrum. He is also the member of National Building Code, Part 8 and Section 2. He's also very interestingly published a book on the missing link, the subject on electrical safety. In the last webinar, we talked about this missing link, and there were many demands. How do I get this book to read? I believe a lot of people have appreciated the way it is well written about the electrical safety. And his company, Cape India, is celebrating 25 years of existence, and Cape India is more popular among electrical engineering community, and its capability in various electrical engineering subject and innovation solution to the market. Over to Mr. Gopakumar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dominic. I would like to thank Deshmukh sir and Sri V. Suresh for the encouraging subjects or encouraging enthusiastic discussions. Let me share the screen to show the presentation. One moment, please. So the subject which I am going to discuss is about electrical safety. Without much introduction, let me go straight into the subject. As you are aware, I am a member in the IS National Electrical Code, IS 732 and the IS 3043, very three important code of practices of electrical installation. And I am also a member in TC 64 of IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission. In this TC 64, the MT40, it's a technical group which handles the electrical safety of hospitals, specifically hospitals. There are about 50 plus experts from 50 plus countries participate in this technical committee. And annually, 3-4 times, we are meeting, discussing the safety situations or problems faced by various countries, and improvements in these standards are made. So I'm also a member in TC81 and SC37A. These are the critical IEC committees taking care of electrical safety or safety of protecting people and property from electrocution and fire. With this background, one small slide about introducing my company. My company is Cape Electric. We are basically the first one which I have put here, electrical safety. Our business is electrical safety, taking classes, but it's all free, not chargeable. We are in this year, after COVID last 1.5 years, we have conducted at least 500 plus classes on electrical safety. Every day it's going on. For example, today afternoon we have a class for BHEL starting at 2 o'clock until 5 o'clock. We are into lightning protection, we are into plastic boxes, and we are into EMI EMC. But electrical safety is mainly we talk into the trainings. I just show you a video which I got from YouTube, which was one of the fire accident in one of the ICUs. First of all, as Dr. Lalu Joseph told, you look at how many kind of electrical items or electronic equipment which is handled. Now, in this particular case, once when the video begins, you can see the nurse or the person with the blue dress. She was running, trying to switch off the lights, but probably the equipment which is burning, there is no power on that particular outlet. She could not switch off the outlet probably. The first spark starts at the 16 seconds and the second spark at the 27 seconds and full blast in 40 seconds. And the equipment, you see, within a minute, the entire situation had changed. So if you try to relay upon the firefighting system in this kind of an environment, you forget it. It won't work. Basically, the electrical installation must ensure that this kind of a situation shall never come. That is the basic. And the electrical safety standards, as I said, globally, the standards made by MT40 are made in such a way that such incidents can be completely avoided, especially from electrical apparatus. But we have to follow certain rules and regulations in order to achieve that. The first one, the ignition actually depends on the product design, system design, use of safety devices, and the type of material. Out of this, the product design, a product of its own, it shall not create a fire. Second is installation, your wiring. Your wiring shall not put so much energy into your equipment to create a fire. You have to have safety devices and you have to use materials which are not endangering or which are not creating a hazardous situation. Fire can even start from a small spark. But in case of an electrical equipment, the standards are made in such a way that ignition is unlikely to occur if the electrical power consumption is less than 15 watts. Because the equipments are designed and tested in such a way that if the power used by the equipment is less than 15 watts, then ignition of fire, the chance of ignition of fire from that particular equipment is very much less. Now, lot of theories or a lot of scientific research studies and scientific ideas are put into making the standards, such as what is the energy, what is the duration, what is the dissipation, and so on. Based on that, a lot of the basic electrical equipment standards are made. I will explain some of the standards which is with respect to fire in an electrical apparatus. But before that, you must understand that the electrical safety cannot be achieved by installing one gadget. Because in the market, if you look, there are devices coming, smart device, IoT-based device. If you buy and put it in your line, you get rid of all the fire problems, electrical fire problems. These are absolutely not possible. So electrical safety or fire from ignition of electricity can be achieved only by proper design, proper erection, system design, use of safety devices, and the type of materials. With respect to the fire, the creation of fire, there are 4 identified sources in the IEC standards or considered in the IEC standards based on several research and several actual study reports. One is the short circuit, accidental sparks, high transient peak current, and abnormal temperature rise. And each cause is attributed to the possible origins, and the possible consequences are also evaluated very well. And these consequences are converted into possible design of an electrical apparatus, and finally testing of an electrical apparatus. I'm just showing you a standard 60695-110. Actually, this series of standard consists of 37 standards, which talks different kind of testing in electrical apparatus. One of the technique which is implemented is power source classification. Power source classification in the sense, you can see here a green, yellow, and a red color marking. So what it says is, see here, class 1, less than 15 watts, after 3 seconds, no ignition. In case of any arcing, or in case of any energy which is dissipated outside, or in case of any fault in an equipment, the maximum amount of energy can be anything, maybe 4,000 watts, 5,000 watts, 10,000 watts. But if the energy is limited to less than 15 watts in 3 seconds, that particular ignition or fault, it is not supposed to create ignition, or it cannot ignite a fire. Similarly, class 2 is a power source with which the amount of power is limited to less than 100 watts in 5 seconds. So that, in the class 2 case, ignition may occur. It depends on the environment, how you are placing the equipment, how far the other equipment are, and what kind of flammable things you are keeping near to that. And for power source class 3 is very clear. This will create a fire if there is an ignition. So it is exceeding the limits of class 2 and class 1 and class 2. So basically, when there is a fault, we have certain time in the sense in seconds to safeguard our property. Say, for example, in the first case, we have 3 seconds. If the protective devices are operating within this particular time, of course, you will have a spark, but nothing happens. The protective device trips and there is no fire. And this is how electrical installation has to be designed. Now, with respect to equipment, the electrical equipment are designed and tested in such a way that these devices are not supposed to create a fire due to an overload or an internal short circuit. So these are very much ensured. As I said, there are several standards. The product manufacturer should go through it. But the problem which we face regularly whenever we go for an analysis or for a site study, what we face is most of the products which is used, they are not complying exactly to the technical requirements of the standard. There are a lot of products available in the market which is not tested based on these particular ideas. So this is basically due to the unawareness of the equipment, the standard. So as such, if you have a good equipment tested as per the most modern IS or IEC standards, especially 6, I have shown you one of the standard, then the chance of fire from the equipment is very much less. But still, let it cause fire, absolutely not a problem. But you have the power supply which can be stopped in order to safeguard your entire installation. That is the second part. Fire from wiring. I have put 15 cases of, I will go through each and every of the case on a quick way. Please give me some time, Mr. Dominic. The first idea of electrical safety is the protective devices shall be selected and designed or installed in such a way that in case of any trouble, any overload or overcurrent or short circuit, the device is supposed to disconnect so that there is no problem in the particular installation. If the design, the first one, overload, people always say that the fire is due to overload because the hospital is designed for 10 beds or 10 operation theaters or operative equipments, and then finally 24 hours instead of 10, 15 numbers are running. As a result, overload happened and the fire has happened. This is absolutely not possible because in your wiring, in case of any overload, your devices are supposed to trip. Your devices should trip so that you cannot overload. And if somebody says that overload is created because of the fire is created because of overload, that means it is not because of overload. It is because your devices didn't trip. We are having, starting from the transformer, we have circuit breakers, MCCBs, MCBs, and so many protective devices are there. Why these devices are not protecting your equipment is the first question to be asked. Of course, a properly designed, erected, and tested installation, the chance of fire is very much less with respect to overload. And you see here 1.45 times 1 hour, the protective device, the conventional disconnection time. You know, a lot of scientific things are coming into this particular case. Then the second part, the selection of the protective device and the wires, very critical. The coordination of the protective device and the wires shall be made in such a way that the protective device is able to protect your installation from overload and short circuit. Installation means the wiring, the protective device. The MCB, for example, is supposed to protect your wiring, not the equipment. But the same MCB shall protect in case of any shock hazard in your building. So for this one, the fire, the protective device and the disconnection times are very much coordinated. These are very well documented in the standard. With respect to wires, the wire must have a life and must have certain degree of temperature. 70 degrees centigrade is the maximum allowed time, and it is supposed to work 20 years of life. And if the current is more than 1.45 or something about 1.45 times the rated current carrying capacity of the wire, then the protective device is supposed to trip. While selecting the wire, you are supposed to go through this particular chart and select it appropriately so that the wires are not overloaded. Very important. Number 4, copper wires. As you are aware, in all the final circuits, that means from the last MCB DB up to the final equipment, we always use a copper wire. And for selecting these copper wire, we have to go through certain critical, type of installations. So we have to evaluate the type of installation, such as how we are routing the line, whether it is through a conduit or it's an open wiring. Because in a conduit, the most important is wires will create heat. Wires have certain resistance, and if the resistance is higher, heat is higher. If the heat is higher, the installation is going to be in trouble. Here, the most important point which we should think is the type of copper which is used in the wire. It is not the type of the insulation, because the wire manufacturers always say, and safe wiring is like FRLS, fire low smoke and fire retardant, and zero halogen cables are more safe. But for fire safety, more than the insulation, the first one is what is the resistance of the wire? The resistance is directly connected to fire, because if the resistance is higher, of course, the heat is more and the chance of fire is higher. So higher impedance in a wire also lead to non-disconnection of an MCB. Very important. If you use a wire which is having a higher resistance, that may lead to non-disconnection of a device. As you can see in the video, the fire has started because the MCB didn't trip within its prescribed time. If the MCB tripped, then there is no fire, only a spark, then immediately MCB tripped, then there is no fire. It's very safe. Now, if you use a wrong wire, you will be in trouble. Wires, copper wires, there are 2 types of conductors used. That means the copper conductor in the copper wire, class 2 and class 5 conductor. All the calculations in the standards are considering to use class 2 copper wire, which is having a lesser resistance in comparison to class 5 wire. Class 5 wires are supposed to be used only for the final cord outlet. If you buy a TV, the wire, the extension cord is a class 5 conductor, or probably panel board wiring, you can use a class 5 conductor. Only for short lengths, you can use class 5 conductor, not for wiring inside your building. If you use a copper conductor of class 5 in your building, you can be 100% sure that today or tomorrow you will be in trouble. Now, why I stress this point more is copper wires with class 2 conductors are not generally available in the market. If you wanted to buy a copper conductor with copper wire with class 2 copper, that means that is the one recommended in the standard. Most of the shops, it's not available. So I would recommend the participants that after the program, probably you call your wire supplier and check what kind of wires you are using. You are supposed to use class 2 copper wire. When it comes to the disconnection time, starting from the transformer up to the final equipment, the disconnection times, maximum disconnection times are very well established in the standard. Your design, as Suresh sir told, most of the electrical safety things you are supposed to take care during the design and implementation, or during design and the erection, not after that, because once when you erected your installation, it is very difficult to establish. So disconnection times are very important. Another point is system earthing. Electrical systems are classified into TNC, TNCS, TNS, GT, IT, different kind of electrical, the system earthings are there. For hospital, we are supposed to follow a wiring called as TNS. TNS stands for, I'm showing a picture, you have a source. You have the OCPD stands for an MCB, for example, you have the equipment. The body of the equipment is connected back to the neutral of the source through a protective conductor. A wire is used to connect it back. This is called as a TNS system. In a hospital, we are supposed to use this kind of a network. So basically a three-phase network, it looks like this. What you should understand is the metal body of your panel board is connected back to the neutral of the source through a metallic wire sufficiently sized to handle the fault current. Then one of the another subject is fault loop impedance. If I go through the previous one, instead of a TNS network, if you use a TNC network in your building, hospital, you can be sure TNC can catch fire. You are not supposed to use a TNC in your building. Then when it comes to the seventh point, fault loop impedance. Fault loop impedance means the impedance of the circuit, which is a very critical subject, which need to be actually taken care during design. The calculations are very much explained in the standard. A lot of improvements had happened in the standard in the IS 732. A very good calculation and the method of calculations are also included. What you should do is fault loop impedance shall be calculated during design, and it should be tested during erection and commissioning, and it should be periodically tested to ensure safe disconnection, especially if you have loose contacts in your wiring. This test will show you that, okay, the device is not tripping, you are in danger. You can you can replace, or you can take a rectification, or you can take some measures to solve it. So this particular test, I'm very sorry to say that in last 4 years, I must have made at least about probably more than 1,500 classes, each average 2 hours. And this subject, everywhere I stress, and even today, the number of electrical engineers, those who are following these tests are quite less. So I request every engineer, those who are in the hospitals, please ensure that these tests are made, or the fault loop impedance is taken care very well. Case number 8, protective equipotential bonding. Protective equipotential bonding is, it means every metallic items in your building, such as the metal water pipe, such as metal gas pipe, such as the rebar in your building, the exposed conductive parts, such as the panel board body, the motor body, and all these things must be interconnected in such a way that during a fault, there is no spark. Say, for example, generally, it can happen that there is a fault in one equipment in location A, but there can be a parallel spark in location B. To avoid such hazards, protective equipotential bonding is mandatory in every electrical installation, and in the hospital, it's very critical. Number 9, earthing of the source. In during this COVID time, I have visited for the purpose of, like not an audit, but just to guide some of the hospitals. I visited a few hospitals, and we were going through this particular subject, earthing of the source. Actually, this picture, what I have shown, is from the IS standard. This picture is existing from the standard since 40 years, but even today, nobody follows this. Transformer neutral is connected to 2 separate earth pits. Body is connected to 2 separate earth pits. DG neutral separate, DG body separate, and everything is separate, connected to different earth pits or earth electrodes in soil. This is absolutely wrong. You must make a proper, earthing system by interconnecting exposed and extraneous conductive parts. If you find this kind of an installation, like two separate pits for neutral, two for body, two for lift, two for main distribution board, two for UPS. An engineer who has designed an electrical system in this fashion, he is not an electrical engineer. He can be called as a fire engineer or fire igniting engineer, because this is the reason for fire. Because if you look at the 100 hospitals, I'm sure that probably majority has got at least some of the sections are like this. So please avoid it. This is never written in the standard or regulations. This is absolutely wrong, totally wrong. People also follow a different system like a clean earth, power earth, lightning protection system earth. This is also a big mistake. These are never written and documented in any standard. People also make the third mistake. You put a separate earth electrode in soil and interconnect everything under the soil. This is also a mistake. Probably sometime this is okay for shock hazard, but for fire, of course, this will not work. So in the picture, in the previous picture which I have shown, that is the right way in the case 9. I can share the presentation if you require so that you can go through it later. One of the important safety measure which has to be taken care in a hospital is called the P conductor current. Very simple to understand. The earth wire is supposed to be a dead wire. No voltage or no current flow must be allowed in that particular wire. But because of the inherent characteristics of the electrical equipment, sometimes these equipment, there will be a leakage current flow, but the system must be designed and tested in such a way that the leakage currents are regulated or reduced less than the allowable limit. I just took one case, the maximum leakage current or the continuous current flow through the earth wire is 10 milliampere. If this current is exceeded, then you will have problem of fire, unnecessary or unwanted spark in some locations. This will create a safety hazard. So neutral and earth inside your building must be strictly separated. Never connect neutral and earth wire together. Both must be strictly separate. The minimum insulation resistance between these two must be 1 mega ohm. You must test it. The voltage between neutral and earth up to 50 volt between neutral and earth is absolutely no problem for your electronics and no problem for fire. This cannot create a shock or a hazard. I'm talking the voltage between neutral and earth. Remember, in hospital, unearthed system called as IT system is recommended, where the neutral to earth voltage can even go to 230 volt. Accidental connection of neutral and earth inside an installation could create neutral circulating current. Neutral circulating current means the current which is supposed to go through the neutral will go through the earth wire, which will create fire, electrocution, and failure of electronics. Number 11, over voltage category or installation category. I'm just showing you some of the catalogs of some of the product. For example, an MCCB, you can see a parameter in their catalog, over voltage category, Cat 4. Multimeter, Cat 3, 1000 volt, Cat 4, 600 volt, MCB, over voltage category 3, another MCB, over voltage category 4. What does it mean is, in your electrical installation, you must select and install electrical apparatus appropriately in such a way that at the origin of installation, that means at your main switchboard, category 4 devices are used. At the distribution, category 3 devices are used. Fixed equipment and portable and fixed equipment, the final equipment connected to the installation are category 2, and category 1 devices you are not supposed to connect directly to a public low voltage supply. It can catch fire. You are supposed to have an electrical separation for category 1 device. Category 1 devices are like your sensitive electronic device. So your design must ensure that these over voltage categories are taken care very well, and you should also ensure that the surges, the transients are lesser than this particular, the actual voltages are within this particular limit. Case number 13, lightning protection. In India, we go for, some kind of fancy, advanced, modern lightning protection. And people say that there is one rod which captures lightning up to 100 meters. There is one down conductor and one earthing, and all your problem goes through this particular one down conductor and one earthing. Sometimes, this is called as technically, the name is early streamer emission lightning protection system. People say that, this is accepted as per the French standard, but be sure that the French standard is not accepting or accepted in the way which is educated in India. One rod, one down conductor, and one earthing, it could create, of course, fire, but it could create a lot of failures in your electrical system. You must ensure that the lightning protection system is as per IS/IEC 62305 or the National Building Code, because in National Building Code Part 8 Section 2 we have included Chapter 11, a very good, the final things what you should do is very much compiled, and you can also refer the National Building Code. Then case 14, inspection. It's quite unfortunate that even though the documents, the IS standards and codes included inspection and testing in a very detailed way, the number of engineers or the number of installations which this is followed is quite less. For example, there are about 18 or 19 points to be inspected by a person for the purpose of safety, and there are about 10 different items which we are supposed to do at testing, like resistance of conductors. You see the number 6, effectiveness of automatic disconnection of supply, just to ensure that your MCBs are operating or not. MCBs are installed for the purpose of providing safety, and if it is not tripping, you are in trouble. So, but there are associated tests. We are supposed to do the test. And the last one, PAT. PAT stands for Portable Appliance Test. In Europe and America, or for example in Australia, this has been also made as a mandatory thing. There is a PAT test instrument available. If you buy some kind of an equipment and if you wanted to connect it to your electrical wiring, because your wiring is very safe. Now the equipment connected, you must do a PAT quite frequently. Now in hospital, what I have seen is a lot of places, people are misguided by thermography. A lot of engineers think that by doing thermography, electrical safety can be achieved. This is absolutely wrong. Thermography, so far in the IEC standard, which I am referring to, so far thermography is not considered as a mandatory test which can ensure safety. Of course, you will get the beautiful pictures and you can find out whether any loose contacts are there. But there are much more efficient tests already included in the standard. You must do that. Probably thermography can be done as an additional safety thing. First, you in my point 14 and 15, I have put the inspection and testing. Over and above, probably you can do the thermography, but doing only thermography can never ensure any safety in your wiring. Medical areas classified into Group 0, Group 1, and Group 2 locations. In Group 2 locations, where the patient is connected with biomedical equipment internal to his skin, or the biomedical equipments are bypassing the skin, and those who are connected to internal organs, as Dr. Lallu shown a picture, there are several equipment, those who are connected to the patient's body. So in those areas, tripping of your device is a problem. You are not supposed to disconnect your supply, because if the MCB trips, the patient will be in trouble. So for that area, you are supposed to have a medical IT system, which is ensuring non-disconnection during a fault. You don't need to trip it. There are other methods to ensure safety in this particular case. This is actually made mandatory in the standard several years back. The second subject in medical equipment or medical area, I'm not explaining all the points. I'm only putting some of the important points which I felt that are important, is supplementary equipotential bonding. You must understand that the resistance of the body or person's body is offered by the skin. In a medical location, most of the time, biomedical equipment are bypassing the skin. As a result, the resistance are quite less, and even a small shock voltage could create a problem. So in these locations, supplementary equipotential bonding means, imagine a room. You have a lot of apparatus. All the body of those apparatus must be interconnected in such a way that between the equipment, the maximum resistance is 0.2 ohm. This is very much mandatory. Unfortunately, lot of biomedical equipment vendors will ask for a separate earth bit. They say, my equipment is very special, I need a separate earth bit. If you are connecting your biomedical equipment to a separate earth bit, this mandatory requirement cannot be fulfilled, which can create, or which is also one of the reason for safety or compromising the safety in a medical location. The third point for medical location are additional tests in group 0 and group 1 and group 2 medical locations. Additional test. See the second one, measures to verify the supplementary equipotential bonding, touch voltage less than 25 volt and resistance of all the wires lesser than 0.2 ohm. All these tests are actually very much mandatory. So I request all of you to go through these standards or go through these points. I can share the presentation, absolutely not a problem. Then the last one, what about the Electricity Act and rules and regulations says? Electricity Act section 149 says, in case of any accident in a premise, the owner of the building, such as the director, manager, secretary, or whatever, they are actually responsible. In order to ensure that the compliance with the act or the rule, the regulations are made by the Central Electricity Authority, measures relating to safety and electric supply. In regulation 12, sub-regulation 2, it says all the requirement of the Code of Practice of Bureau of Indian Standards and the National Electrical Code may be followed to make a safe installation. Basically, if we go through, I have not shown all the regulations, I just put some of the parts. If we go through the regulations and rules, Act, Electricity Act and all, it's very clear that in case of any accident, the owner of the building is liable. Now, some reasons of hospital fire safety: fire from apparatus. Please ensure that all the apparatuses which you are using are conforming to the technical or the fire requirements or fire safety requirements of your of the latest IEC standards. The latest, I would say. In this case, probably some of the Indian standards, adoption will take some time. So I would recommend to go as per the latest standard. Most of the, the international or imported items are tested, but you have to be very careful, because one of the big danger which we are facing is even the imported items. There are some products which is made specifically for India. What is specific? These tests are sometimes not carried out because the market do not demand for it. The market is demanding for a cheaper price. So cheaper price, of course, the confirmation are sometimes, in direct way, are sometimes danger. This is very, you must take care. Then all the 15 points which I have told must be taken care during the design, during erection, and during testing. You cannot compromise on these points. And in medical location, special safety requirements are there. As I said, I have put only 4 or 5, but there are several. And if your installation is satisfying these requirements, you can be sure that the chance of fire, it can be negligible. The chance of fire it can be nullified. So, and you can have a very, very safe electrical installation. By this, I would like to stop the presentation. Thank you very much. If you are interested, you can note down my email address and mobile number. As I said, the IEC TC64 MT40, I'm a member. Okay, I'm the only member from India at the moment in TC64. We have a lot of expertise in the group, a lot of documents are there. So knowledge, getting the knowledge is not an issue, but implementing the knowledge, you must take care. By this, I would like to stop and thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Dominic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we have also broadcasted your contact details and all that. I'm sure people will contact you. Sir, Deshmukh sir, to summarize, would you like to comment on his presentation, sir? Yeah.
At the outset, I can say, Mr. Gopakumar, that your presentation has been technically and otherwise quite satisfying. Yeah, these are the issues I was looking forward for. And as you and me, we all know that the Indian Electricity Act in its place is fine, but we as a citizen, we as an occupier, we as the owner of the occupancies, how much we are concerned about, how much electrical safety audit that we get it done when we change the utilities or the occupancies from A use to B use and vice versa. And also when we have designed the building for an X factor, and when we enhance the building to X plus 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 something, that time whether we have taken adequate precautions to see our electrical backbone infrastructure and electrical infrastructure is in line and order. So these are the points missing. It is not electricity which is the cause of the fire. That's the way I can summarize. It is we are responsible for not using the electricity in a right way and not taking the abundant precautions to see that the electrical short circuits or electrical causes of the fires can be easily averted. And your last slide, you said that you in hospital premises, if you take even the 5 steps or the 5 measures, the the cause of the electricity can be nullified. But in a lighter vein, let me say at the end that generally we do not have a fire forensic as a branch in India. And since we do not have the fire forensic, the exact cause of the fire is not properly diagnosed. And since it is not diagnosed or investigated, we just pass on the buck to electricity. So one reason is that the measures which you recommended are hardly being taken maybe in the new premises or the vigilant or the responsible owners of the occupiers, but majority of the places there's a negligence on this. And second part is that the culture, the safety culture, are we responsible for? Are we taking care of all these things? The basic things, the loose wires. Say the fashion of your false ceilings. I have seen a number of places where I have found the cause of fire is behind the false ceilings. Olden days, these carpets were the culprit. Now the false ceilings are the culprit. People used to lay the wires below the carpet the way they wish. You go to even 5-star properties. And now the carpets are going out because of the environmental reasons. They put all this, they camouflage behind the false ceiling. Now false ceiling, if you have the wires which you said, the cheap wires, and then you have your installations or the electrical filaments, those are of a cheaper quality, and the wire insulation gets burned or smoldered, then there is short circuit going to occur, and the short circuit occurs maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, people will not notice even the fire. Maybe after 5-7 minutes they will feel there's some smell of the smoke here, but they will not be able to notice where it is. And when it turns into a conflagration, then things are out of control, and then we blame the electricity. It is not electricity which is responsible. It is we are responsible, and we have to bring this awareness in the society, in the occupancy owners. In particular, today we are talking about hospital owners, and then we can eliminate this cause. I would also request you, there's a lot of demand by the participants through their question answers. Your presentation has been very invited and demanding, so I will request Dominic to share both the presentations of today to our participants, maybe on Fire Safe India Foundation's website so they can download, or the way it is possible. So with this, I can summarize an excellent presentation with a very good insight, all technical parameters made very, very easy to understand by the participants. So with this summarization, we'll open this session for the question answer, and we request participants, and I'll request somebody from the host side to see the questions, because I could see the question answer.
I know.
There are a lot of comments.
I know.
So I honor the comments, I accept the comments, but say just for taking 1 or 2 questions, I will start, Mr. Dominic. One question somebody has asked me, in apartment settings, which fire extinguisher do you recommend? So I would jolly well I would recommend ABC type fire extinguisher, and for the size and the number of extinguishers and all that purpose, I would request that you always refer to the IS code 2190, which very well specifies about the selection, installation and maintenance of the fire extinguishers. So this is the answer I can give. One person from my fraternity, a fire officer from Gujarat, is asking that people are concerned about getting the fire approval. Of course, Lalu Joseph also mentioned in her talk that on and off I was putting up my camera because of the connectivity bandwidth here, but I was very serious on the topic, so I was listening to each and every word of everyone. So Lalu Joseph said that the people are concerned about getting that approval or NOC. Is that really important? Yes, as a regulatory compliance, that may be important. But are we doing the things in a way that they are required to be complied? that is more important. So I would answer to my friend from Gujarat, Mr. Mehta, that yes, I agree. This is our universal experience in India at least, that the approvals are given importance. We put seat belt when there is a policeman, or Lalu Joseph showed that the first slide of our opening stock, that the cultural issues. This is into culture, the way we catch our train, the way we board our bus, the way we travel into the airline, the way we drive our vehicles. So, Mehta, this is a cultural issue, and this is the major agenda of the Fire Safe India Foundation, to bring in the cultural change, which is a very, very difficult task. But yes, I agree with you. So, with these two, which I am trying to address, if there are any questions that our host can either highlight, or if Mr. Gopakumar, if he can directly answer, we can just try to give justice as much as we can. Thank you, Mr. Dominic.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have picked up few questions that's relevant to the today's topic, so that I'll just throw this question. So, Mr. Nishad Khazi is appreciating the presentation, but he's asking, where will we get the best practices in hospital for electrical installation? Is there any book, is there any guideline for best practices on electrical installation?
I would say so far there is no such book or no SOPs available, but we can make one and circulate.
I can say that as a stopgap till we prepare some book and circulate, Mr. Gopakumar. NFPA 72 handbook, 70 handbook could be the best guiding book to understand the consequences and the problems. So you all can refer that. It is easily available on the net also.
Yeah,
Also
sir, actually the same, sir, the same NFPA 70, for example, this is the same NFPA 70 is adopted in India as IS 732. This is the document which the TC 64 is making, where I am the committee member. So there we have a lot of guides, but if you look at the SOP kind of thing, there is nothing so far.
SOP is not there. I said if people want a guidance, and they want to understand, especially the technical faculties, so then they can refer to the handbook of NFPA 70, where there is a clear, I mean, the explanations given after the every clause of the code, you know.
Yeah,
this is what actually I did. This is what I did in my book, The Missing Link. The Missing Link, the book is only for the guide how to, in fact, some of the pictures also I took from NFPA 70.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I think a lot of people are asking about the book, The Missing Link. I think you must republish it, digital one. We can publish through Fire Safe India. And also the one guideline, best practices in hospital on electrical safety. If you have compiled something, and probably you will, he'll help the people to practice. I think if you could do that, sir, we'll be very happy to distribute among all the participants here. So I'll move on to the next question from Senthil Kumar.
One point here I do not know about. So Mr. Gopakumar said that he can address my question. If that book is for some X price, Mr. Gopakumar, then we don't mind as a Fire Safe India Foundation to buy certain copies and to give to some public hospitals even free of cost. So you as an editor, publisher, we don't want to, and some books we will make available through Fire Safe India Foundation at a subsidized cost. And if it is a free publication, sorry, I take my comments back.
Sir, it's free.
Many times in India, people want free, so they download free and then they don't read.
Oh yes, sir. No. All free is always taken for granted. Nothing is read. So when we pay, and even in fact, if you pay and come as a participant, your attention is much larger. When it comes to free, nothing.
The Indian International Society for Fire Safety, NFPA, Fire Chiefs Conference, Fire Chiefs Association, all these foreign bodies, when they conduct all these seminars, webinars, they charge certain fees, and the fees are very expensive. Even NFPA, they charge very heavy fees. Here, our webinars are free, but the response of the participants is not that encouraging. Yes, I appreciate and honor the people, those who have spent time today, but it's not that encouraging. And our seminars and the webinars, people come for marketing their products. They find this as a space to share their email IDs and the mobile and the company name and all those things. I welcome that also. We grow together. We have to work together for the society. They are most welcome. But the serious interest in the subject, that will only come when we also start charging some fees. But we will not do that because we are a developing nation. We will trust our people and we will carry our mission. Yes, Mr.
You are
Dominic.
absolutely correct, sir. So I'll move on to the next question from Senthil Kumar. Should we check over voltage category or impulse voltage data of equipment or both? As you have mentioned, at various stages from TAFO to load, we associate SPDS with transistor voltage.
Yes, thanks for the question. Actually, sir, the book is free of cost. We printed about 10,000 copies, and all the 10,000 is over in 1 year. So the next, we are trying to make some more modification, some more improvement, and make one more circulation. We can give you those books, absolutely not a problem. Now, answer to the question of Mr. Senthil Kumar. Both over voltage category selection of the device based on the over voltage category and the impulse over voltage requirement with SPD, both are important. Both are required. So the next
question from Senthil: should we check over voltage category or impulse voltage data of equipment or both?
Actually, both are same. Over voltage category is the technical name. Actually, what it does is each over voltage category, depending upon the rated voltage, is associated with an impulse voltage. So saying in one way, over voltage category or impulse voltage withstand, both are same.
Good, sir. Tony Matthew is very specifically highlighting that the slide on correct earthing system, connection of lightning, arrestor, transformer body and neutral, etc. The facility. Tony, we will definitely share you the slides as we promised, and you can refer those slides that you are very keen to understand about correct earthing system. And we also shared Mr. Gopukumar's email ID. You can also write him directly. Okay, going to sanitizer, the main culprit is sanitizer. I think a panelist, can we reduce the last Surendran, can we reduce the risk of electrical fire by adding protection in the distribution board similar to protection in MA switchgear? Sir, this is talking about local suppression in the electrical system.
Yes.
Yes,
of course it is. Of course, these devices are very much mandatory. Not only in one place, at different locations, depending upon your the way you are splitting your circuits. Based on that, every change in the wire, you are supposed to have protective devices. And finally, the equipment itself is supposed to have its own protective device in order to take care of the internal overcurrent or short circuit. But most of the time, the internal protective device in the equipment is not efficient during earth fault. If there is a fault, that means that the insulation failure between a wire and say, for example, the body of the equipment, if it happens, the internal device is not efficient to disconnect. In those cases, we need to depend on the externally mounted protective device, or then we have to go to the system earthing. What kind of system earthing, what kind of loop impedance, what kind of disconnection time, what kind of shock voltages, all these things comes into picture. So, of course, protective devices are mandatory.
Sir, question from Manush Kandelwal. How to ensure that system are working, installed properly as per the design and the, and the role of passive fire system? PMC's awareness in major hospital and how to jointly work together. So it is something he's asking about how the system continuously work, whether it is installed properly. Is there any way to check?
How to ensure the systems are working, installed properly as per the design and role of passive fire. Yeah, okay. The role of passive fire system, it's one of the requirement. I told the 15 points which I felt as important. The role of fire safety system, every electrical installation shall have protection from shock hazard, protection from thermal effect, protection from over voltages, protection from over current and short circuit and earth fault. Now, out of this, the thermal part is the fire, the fire or the fire protection system. Here, there are three subjects with respect to fire safety. One is the disconnection time and the fire, the classification of the power supply. The next one is what kind of passive fire protection systems you are using, under what category or under what zones you are using it. And the third one is how you are stopping the propagation of fire. So these 3 points are coming under how to limit the thermal effect. One of the subject here is passive fire protection system. That means once when the wire passes from one zone to the other zone, we are supposed to stop the fire and the smoke within an area, for which you have to use a passive fire protection system. But to the second question, awareness in major hospital and how to jointly work together. This must be a part of the design. And of course, if you do the inspection, which I have shown, point number 14 and 15, inspection and testing, the inspector who is doing the testing of your building, he must check it, not only whether it is available, not only the availability of that particular product, but whether it is really tested, whether it is installed as per the manufacturer's recommendation, whether proper labels are used at the installation, and so on. Those are very well documented.
Sir, we have a question for Mr. M.E. Deshmukh from Uday Singh. He is asking, we have a conflicting info on providing a sprinkler system in ICU as far as hospital planning is concerned. Can you clarify on the same? Also, if the location of sprinkler is predefined in case we do have sprinkler system in place of is placed in the ICU. So basically, there's a conflict of information about sprinkler system in ICU.
These conflicts are created conflicts, and these are not conflicts, first of all. We can very well have sprinkler systems in the ICUs. There's no reason why we should not have the sprinkler system in the ICUs. Whether the property is important, the life is important, what is important is to be taken care of. If there's a fire, and that fire has to be extinguished, and just smoke coming from some corner will not really activate the sprinkler unless the temperature is raised to, say, a particular degree to which the sprinkler is specified. Some people say that the ICUs are required to be in a highly air-conditioned condition, and the temperature has to be very low. But that temperature is not a freezing temperature, where the water is going to be, frozen. And if that is the condition, actually there's no condition, no ICU I have seen the -degree or 0 degree. But if that is the condition in some other occupancies in warehouses, etc., we have a pneumatic system where initially the pneumatic system will get activated and the water flow will start. So we should have the sprinkler system in the ICUs, either our IS code or the NFPA IS standard does not restrict providing the provision of sprinklers into the ICUs. Rather, every code is contemplating that partial installation of the sprinkler system is not recommended. So am I amply clear?
Yes, no. Maybe he's asking, can we use a sprinkler in ICU?
Yes, I am saying we can use. There is no reason for any conflict. Our own IS code is also specifying that we should provide it. And there's no reason why we should not provide it. These conflicts are created by the people, maybe with the myths that if the sprinkler gets activated, what will be the position in the ICU, if there's an accidental operation. So these are the myths. If the system is put in a right order and the system is maintained properly, there is no reason. Accidental breakage or such sprinklers in the, as per the NFPA survey, is 4 sprinklers out of 1 billion.
Reactions.
So, it is not the reason for escape for not providing the sprinklers in the ICU. We should provide.
Yeah, but Nagaraju said yes. One of the pre-action system is what recommended, dry sprinkler, and pre-action system is a right solution for the ICU and OT complexes. That's what that's the right solutions for that. Anyway, I'll move on to the next question, sir. This is a very relevant and every common man would like to know. That is what Arsh Ramaya is asking, how to protect our residential property, our high-rise building from the fire due to loose contact say within the equipment or a plug not inserted well. If RCDs will not help, what will help?
Yeah, for this purpose, there are protective devices. See, there are two things. One is the wire itself is having loose contact, but your question is very specific if there is a loose contact inside the plug or if the insertion is not correct. There are devices called as AFDD, arc flash detection device. These are like MCB, small device for critical areas such as bedrooms and all. These devices are also recommended in the upcoming National Electrical Code. You should use that particular device. It will disconnect in case of any small sparking due to a loose contact. So that is the solution. Whereas if the loose contact is in the wires or in the wiring up to the socket, after pulling the wire through the socket or after pulling the wire through the conduit, we are supposed to measure the resistance of the conductor and compare it with the reference value and find out the resistance is within the limit. So these tests are there. So similarly, I could see one more question from Santhya Mahadevan from if thermography study. Yes, if thermography study is not ideal enough, what alternate testing would be suggested? It is actually not one test. There are 10 tests and 18 subjects for inspection, 18 visual inspections or 18 subjects for visual inspection, and 10 tests are mandatory in a normal location of the hospital. And for the group 2, that means inside ICUs and OTs, operating theaters, you are supposed to do additional 5 more tests. So totally 15 different tests are mandatory in that particular location. It starts with the resistance measurement of the conductors. Then, one of the tests is fault loop impedance, a touch voltage test, and so on. There are several. I can send you, if required, I can send you the list of those tests. These are very much available in the IS 732, and there is a new standard, IS 17512, published in 2021, exclusively for hospitals. So those standards you should refer.
So we'll take last 2 questions. We need to conclude. Our target time was 12:45. We have exceeded. So we'll take two questions. Karthik Kumar is asking, in a TT system, is it authorized to convert TNC system at the main distribution level, that is at the entrance of the installation, without disturbing the downstream?
There is no legal requirement, or there is no, legally whether this is correct or not is never documented. This is actually a very big lapse in our regulation, for example. But if we look at from the point of view of standards, Indian standards, the recommended one is TNC in the distribution and the TNS inside your building. TT is not recommended. But invariably, the electricity supply companies are giving TT system, which is actually a violation of our both regulation and the standards. But for the purpose of safety, what you should do is, in case if you have a TT system, at the point of commencement of supply, that means at the mains incoming switchboard, you must install a 30 milliampere RCD. This is also recommended or written in the rules, saying that if the system is not as per the fault loop impedance, then you should put a 30 milliampere RCD at the beginning. As a result, it is possible, but converting from TT to TNC, it is the subject of the utility, the energy supplier. Please don't change their system, because it may lead to some other kind of accidents.
So last question, we'll move to the last question, but one question with Deshmukh after that on the extremism. But Suraj Surendran, very important question is asking. I hope you can read this question. Incoming supply neutral sometimes have up to 25 volt with E. This is a huge risk of damaging equipment. Isn't the EB required to earth neutral at the specific intervals? Can we take legal action based on violation of IEC and IS code where they don't do it despite several requests?
Of course, the EB is supposed to earth the neutral conductor 5 times in every kilometer for overhead line. This is a mandatory requirement. It is written in the IS code, but more than that, it is also written in several regulations, very, very clearly and specifically written. Every kilometer, 5 times in the low voltage line up to 650 volt, they are supposed to do. And if they are not doing it, and in case of any failure or in case of any accident, of course, you can put them liable to pay. It is possible.
Thank you. Sandhya Madhavan, we'll get back to you with the details that you asked. I will pass on your contact details to Mr. Gopakumar. And the last question to Mr. Deshmukh, whether we can use water mist extinguisher for staircase area.
Which area?
Staircase area, water mist is wonderful. It's, they can use
staircase area. See, whether you use water mist or whether you use sprinkler system, the building has to be fully, equipped with the same system. You can't, it is very difficult to provide a partial system. So there cannot be a system. Many buildings I have seen in Mumbai around also, that there's a practice of putting sprinklers only into the staircase areas, which is absolutely wrong, violative in terms of law, and derogatory in terms of, or objectionable in terms of the IS standard 1505. So the question has to be amplified, whether you want to have the water mist systems for the entire area, including the ICUs. Answer is yes. You want to provide the sprinkler system for the entire building, which is fitting within the provisions of the IS code, that you have to have the sprinklers above 45-meter height also. Yes, you have to provide for the complete building. Barring exceptions of some areas in pharmaceutical or such companies where there's a water reactive material kept or water reactive installation is there, barring those areas, you have to fully provide the sprinkler system. It can't be partial.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Last word, Mr. Dominic.
Yeah.
That today's participants also as interesting as every time we do the webinars. I would request Dominic to share our URL of the firesafeindia.org and request everyone to just become a member. The membership is nominal fees, but the idea is to bring all sort of interest groups into the net and then address their issues one by one, or conduct programs or training programs, say for the MEP people related to fire, or say the electrical safety people by catching hold of the experts like Mr. Gopakumar, or you have passive fire protection was a question. On that, we want to conduct the programs. We want to conduct the programs on the project management for the fire contractors or the installers. So my humble request to everyone, just be the member of the firesafeindia.org. That is the website, and you just click the membership button and just be the members. It will be easy for us to create the powerful tool or the powerful group to drive this mission Fire Safe India. Thank you, Mr. Dominic.
Thank you, sir. Already URL is shared and people can just click there and move on to the website. And there is a membership. It's just 750 rupees. It's a very nominal membership fee for the participant, and it's less than the cost of a pizza. So I'm sure
that also Dominic, they are entitled to get 50% tax rebate on the ATG. So it is 25 only.
Why that 750 rupees? As Mr. Deshmukh said, anything you pay and buy, there's a value. If anything given free.
So I want to connect, because people become once member, they don't renew their membership. So the connectivity is lost, their contact numbers are changed. So we need to be a cohesive group. My idea is not collecting money. Or if members suggest me out of that money, I should return something to them, we are willing to do that. But idea is to be together. It should be the bandwagon which will be going across the India to see the drive this mission. That is the whole idea. Okay, Mr.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you, the chairman of Fire Safe India Foundation, Mr. M.D. Deshmukh, and who has taken a huge task in mass awareness throughout the country. And your support as a member will make a huge difference. I once again appeal to members, please join FSIF. And I want to thank the speaker, Gopakumar. The wealth of knowledge that he has on electrical safety is amazing. Simply amazing. And he has given me a list of other topic that we're going to cover on the data center and so on. So which means every month Mr. Gopakumar will be there to give his guidance and his knowledge sharing in coming months. So we are very happy. We want to thank Cape Electric, who's directly or indirectly contributing on the education on electrical safety. And I also appeal people to support him by visiting his website and see what else he does other than just teaching and creating awareness. And I'm sure everybody need business to move on in life, and I appeal everyone to just log into his website and make sure that you understand about KEP Electric. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for sparing your valuable time on the weekend. This is the first time we try to see how successful we are on Saturday at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and we had 560 registered. Out of that, 200 plus attended, which is almost 45% turnout. It's great to have you all. Have a great, safe weekend. Thank you, the speakers and panelists here. You also have a safe weekend. Thank you very much. God bless you.